Sophie Miller lived a life that most people from the outside admired. At 39, she had been married to James for nearly 15 years. Together, they had two children, Michael, who was 13 and already showing signs of teenage independence, and Emily, their sweet and curious 9-year-old. Their home sat in a quiet neighborhood just outside of Denver, Colorado. It was the kind of place where kids rode bicycles on summer evenings, neighbors waved as they mowed their lawns, and families gathered for backyard barbecues on weekends. On the surface, Sophie's life was steady and ordinary, but beneath it, she carried a quiet ache that no one else seemed to notice. James was a good man, responsible, hardworking, and faithful, but over the years, their marriage had lost its spark. Conversations were short, mostly about bills, groceries, or the children's schoolwork. Affection had been replaced with routine. Sophie often found herself lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this was all there was to marriage, an endless cycle of responsibilities without the warmth of connection. One Friday evening, Sophie attended a charity gala downtown. James had planned to go with her, but a last-minute crisis at work kept him in the office. "I'll make it up to you, Soph," he promised over the phone, his voice weary. Sophie smiled politely, though inside, she felt the sting of disappointment. She slipped on her navy blue dress, the one she hadn't worn since their 10th anniversary, and drove into the city alone. The hotel ballroom shimmered with golden lights and chatter. People clinked glasses, laughed at small talk, and exchanged polite compliments about one another's attire. Sophie, however, felt out of place, like a puzzle piece that didn't belong. She found a small corner near the refreshment table, holding a glass of sparkling water, pretending to be occupied while her eyes wandered over the crowd. That's when she noticed him. A tall man in his early 40s, with salt and pepper hair and an easy smile, walked over and introduced himself. "I'm Daniel," he said warmly, extending his hand. "And I'm guessing you don't really want to be here either." Sophie laughed, surprised by his honesty. "You guessed right. My husband was supposed to come, but work won again." Daniel nodded knowingly. "Seems like work wins too often these days. My ex-wife used to say the same thing about me." They started talking about work, children, hobbies, and the small frustrations of everyday life. Sophie was astonished by how effortlessly the conversation flowed. With James, conversations often felt forced or mechanical, but with Daniel, it was like air, natural and unstrained. He listened intently, laughed at her jokes, and shared thoughtful stories of his own. Hours passed without Sophie realizing it. For the first time in years, she felt seen, heard, and alive. When the gala ended, Daniel walked her to her car. The air was cool, and the city lights sparkled in the distance. Sophie hesitated, her heart racing with emotions she hadn't felt in so long. Daniel smiled gently. "I'm glad I met you tonight, Sophie. You reminded me that good conversations still exist." She smiled back, torn between gratitude and guilt. "Me too." That night, she drove home in silence, her heart heavy with conflicting feelings. She hadn't done anything wrong, but the joy she felt in Daniel's company left her questioning everything. She crawled into bed next to James, who was fast asleep, his phone still buzzing with work emails. Sophie lay awake, her mind racing. Why did one evening with a stranger feel more fulfilling than the last several years of her marriage? In the days that followed, Sophie couldn't shake Daniel from her thoughts. She replayed their conversation, the way his eyes lit up when he laughed, the way he genuinely seemed to care about her words. It felt intoxicating, but it also scared her. She loved James, at least she thought she did, but her marriage had grown so distant that she wasn't sure anymore. A week later, she ran into Daniel again at a coffee shop downtown. The moment their eyes met, it was as if fate had decided to test her resolve. They sat together, sipping coffee and sharing more pieces of their lives. Daniel confessed that his divorce had left him lonely and searching for meaning. Sophie admitted that she often felt invisible in her own marriage. "Do you still love him?" Daniel asked softly. The question pierced her heart. I don't know anymore," Sophie whispered. Daniel reached for her hand, but Sophie quickly pulled it back, her chest tightening. I can't do this, she said, her voice trembling. I have a family. I can't betray them. Daniel nodded, understanding in his eyes. I respect that, Sophie. But don't confuse loyalty with silence. You deserve to be happy too. That night, Sophie sat at the kitchen table long after the kids had gone to bed. James walked in, loosened his tie, and grabbed a leftover slice of pizza from the fridge. He didn't notice the tears in her eyes until she spoke. James, can we talk? He looked surprised, but sat down. Of course. What's wrong? Sophie took a deep breath. I feel like we've become strangers. I miss us, James. I miss the way we used to laugh, the way we used to look at each other. Lately, it feels like I'm living with a roommate, not my husband. James put his slice down slowly, his brow furrowed. I didn't realize you felt that way. I know I've been buried in work, but I thought providing for you and the kids was enough. It's not just about money, James, Sophie said softly, tears streaming now. It's about love, connection, being present. I need more than bills paid and a roof over my head. I need you. The weight of her words hung heavy in the room. For the first time in years, James truly looked at his wife, not just as the mother of his children, not just as someone who kept their household running, but as a woman who had quietly been aching for his attention. He reached across the table and took her hand, his eyes glistening. I don't want to lose you, Sophie. Tell me what I need to do. I'll do it. That night, for the first time in a long time, they talked honestly. They talked about their fears, their disappointments, and their hopes. James admitted that he had hidden behind work because he was afraid of failing as a husband. Sophie admitted how lonely she had felt, how close she came to slipping into a dangerous path. It wasn't easy, and healing didn't happen overnight. But that conversation became a turning point. James began leaving his office earlier, surprising Sophie with small gestures, flowers on a random Tuesday, a handwritten note on her nightstand, planning a family outing without her asking. Sophie, in turn, started investing back into their marriage, not just as a duty, but as a choice. They attended counseling, learned to listen without judgment, and promised to make time for each other again.